what is estate planning and the concept of estate. And I will leave that with Attorney Nguyen. But here I want to say to you that as an immigrant myself, estate planning, it was not an easy concept for me to, number one, understand it, and number two, to apply to it. And because culturally, it is very hard to plan for time after your time on earth. It just, people don't want to use the word of death in our Chinese culture, so nobody talk about death. Nobody planned that, and nobody planned beyond that. And for that reason, culturally, we're not used to think about that. And our parents certainly did not set an example for us like they did something. No, most of them didn't do anything. They don't have anything. So that's not even in the conversation at the household. And most of the small business owners are startups, and we're so busy with the work itself in front of us. How many of us has time to sit around with a glass of wine and enjoying thinking about what happens after we die? Who cares, right? So those are the things really surrounding the reality. And the immigrants, we haven't even settled in the country yet. How could we even thinking about what happened to us if we die? So there is a lot of resistance to estate planning, but what I want to tell you today is that estate planning is no different than tax planning. Tax planning you are familiar with, and you may even done one with our firm, because we do tax planning every year for our client at the end of the year. But estate planning is just like at the end of the life. Before the end of the life, you want to plan your estate. And roughly, I want you to understand that there's 40% of estate taxes the federal government can levy on your estate if it is over 11.58 million. You're probably sitting there goes, well, I would never have that money, so I would not be subject to that tax. You might be right if you don't have that money, but let's say if you have a business that is evaluated to be 10 million, 11 million, or you have several businesses you think is worth nothing but evaluated to be 12 million, then right away everything else you have is becoming taxable from the federal tax standpoint, okay? And then you also have state. The state is not coming out here for you for free and they tax to you. And I have Iowa, where we have what we call the inheritance tax, then that's ranged from 5% to 15%. Then you have Minnesota, they don't have an inheritance tax, but they have estate tax. Anything over 3 million, they have 12% to 16%. So there is taxes on what's left over. And with that said, there's also ways to stop that tax. This is what planning is all about. And there's also other reasons for planning. For example, and probate is one of the big reasons, and I want Attorney Don to talk about that right after this slides, and he will explain what's probate. But the thing is, I want you to remember, and it doesn't matter your estate is big or is small, probate charges by percentage of your estate. And your estate is not just the money you have, it's the money plus the debt you have, the total. And you say that, oh, what do you mean? I have $1 million home, I borrow 900,000, and I just have equity for 100,000. You're saying that my estate is $1 million, and you're gonna charge me percentage on the $1 million? Yes, you bet. That's how probate charges is coming through. So I will turn the probate side of knowledge explanation job to Attorney Nguyen and explain to us what is probate.
Thank you. Most people don't know that the laws of the United States are based on the English common law, everything from criminal law to civil to everything else. So probate is a way that the king back in the old day controlled the property that on the land that of the kingdom. For example, if if somebody died who was a knight or somebody who owns land, they don't want that land to go to somebody else who's not part of the system. So they put on a probate system so the government has authority to control over the real property. That's how probate was done. So the probate is still prevalent in this country to this day because somebody got to distribute the money, the property after somebody passed away. And the situation is really more difficult when somebody doesn't have a will when he or she dies, because then the state will have to make a determination based on a set of law how to distribute that. Okay, the thing is, probate will happen if somebody died. That's just the rule. But that if that person doesn't have anything, then there won't be probate. And you're saying, Don, you're just saying, you know, we need money, we need to plan for what you're talking about having nothing. Well, we're going to talk about that and why we want to avoid probate by using a trust. Okay, if you have a trust, the trust owns everything, not you. So you don't have to go through probate. You don't have everything under your name. So in order to avoid the probate, whether or not you have a will, you're going to avoid the court fee, the executive fee, the attorney fee, the accounting fee, the appraisal, everything else. And I came into a case where the attorney did the probate, and the estate is so small they didn't have the money to pay for the attorney and accounting, all that. The only thing they have is the property, and the property is, I don't know, worth about $40,000-$50,000. So the executor, who was the heir of the deceased, transferred the property from the estate to himself without paying for the fee and costs and all that, and tried to sell the property to pay everybody. Well, the law firm put a lien on the property for their fees and court costs and everything for the probate. So even though they only have one property, they're going to have to pay for everything on probate costs before they can obtain any money out of the thing. So at all costs, avoid probate. Is also the thing that bothered me on the probate aspect is it is a public procedure. You can look up on the court online and see what filing is done under that probate, who got the money, who get paid, and all that stuff. You really don't want people to know that about you, even after you die.
That is so true, Don. And I remember a case that, it's not a lot of money, very small, less than $100,000 on the estate for the dad. But the siblings don't agree with each other, so they fought on the court. So the probate cost itself is close to half of what they get. So in the end, none of the siblings really get any money, because after they pay the attorneys, the lawyers, the court fees, and they wasted $100,000 that the dad left for them. So, and not only that, it also went on to public record. So everybody know that family was fighting over just $100,000. It would be highly recommended by Attorney Don that you don't leave things on the table to go through probate. You want to set up a living trust to protect that, so it become a private settlement, basically. And here is a list of couple of big words. Like I want, Attorney Don to kind of just simply walk through those words, because we hear them here and there. On the tax side, I can help, but you give us some of your understanding on these big words before we dive into the estate planning.
Estate sound like something big, something with a lot of money involved, but it just simply means that's your property. If you die, you'll no longer have a personal aspect to your name. You only have an estate. So for everything that they do under probate, they say in the matter of the estate of the deceased. So when we look at the estate, it doesn't mean something big. It's just simply your leftover property. The estate tax, federal, and gift tax. Oh, what's the gift tax for Iowa, Ying?
The gift tax limitation is 15,000 per person. Means the mom can give 15,000 to the kid. That can give another 15,000. So each kid could receive gift from parents 30,000 in 2020.
So this year, if I have money to give to my kid before I die, or before I have to go into a trust, I can give it to my kid without paying taxes myself. Is that correct? If I keep
Correct.
it under 50,000. Okay.
Yep. You can just write a check for 15,000, give to your kid without worry about gift tax. There's no tax. But if you want to write 15,000 and $1, that $1 will come in to be taxed at 40%.
When I was young and go to school, and some of the kids would tell me that, hey, my grandparents just gave me, you know, I don't know how much it was back then, but $10,000–15,000. I'm like, really? Don't they have to wait till they die to give you that money? So that's a good thing to know. If you have some money you want to distribute the money non-taxable to your children, so they can use it while they're young. And if you can afford that, I think that's a great way to go. So kind of a little bit of the distribution before the deceased.
Yeah. There's a lot of good tax play can come in for gift tax. Just here, let me give you an example. If the parents are doing business, the business is doing better and better each year. The parents' share of that business may be only worth, say, $1 a share. So you can literally transfer 15,000 shares to the kids because it's under the gift tax limit. So you can transfer those shares to the kids, and on 2020, in this year, but the kids will have the 15,000 shares, but it will take off forever, right? Because the shares will worth more and more. So that is an effective way of transferring your business to your children through gift tax by corporation shares. That is a very well established process people are using. And you know, if you're ever in the situation where you felt like you made a lot of money, but you kind of want to give the company to your children, but you don't want to wait until you die to do that, and then you want to avoid estate taxes, then gift tax is the way to go. Super way to go right now.
So are you saying that the value of the gift had to be under 15,000? It doesn't matter what the gift
right, yes, doesn't matter. Yeah, doesn't need to be cash, could be building.
Okay, that's great to know.
Yes, could be stock, could be anything. But of course, the value cannot be something without professional opinion, right? So you have to evaluate your company, come up with the business valuation, the shares, and then you move the shares over to the kids under gift tax threshold.
That's why you need more than just a lawyer. You need a CPA too.
You need me.
Okay. I think the rest of the terms are pretty self-explanatory. We can go to the next one.
Sure. And so here, if you have only 1 minute to spare on Earth, what do? Don, tell us.
I don't know.
Maybe definitely not to talk to Ying or you or anybody. Maybe 1 minute is too short. Let's just say only 1 week to spare.
Yeah. If you have 1 week, then you have to do a few things right away.
Yeah, okay.
Good Lord. But if you have 1 minute to spare, you got to do the will, okay?
Okay.
Because if you don't have a trust, even if you have a trust, the will is within the trust, okay? So you do that will. make sure your wishes are taken care of. It's not only for how much money you can distribute to your heirs, but also how are you going to be buried, what your wishes are. You know, you have that puppy you just got, who's going to take care of that. All that stuff you need in the will. And the power of attorney, so somebody, even when you're still living, can, but incapacitated and unable physically or mentally to take care of the thing, can take the time and control things for you, be your representative on your behalf while you're unable to do that. A healthcare directive. If you ever have any surgery, whether you get put under, they ask you if you have a healthcare directive, a living will regarding the healthcare, and they ask you questions like, you know, do you want to be unplugged, or you want to be kept alive? You have any religious affiliation that you need to comply with? Things like that, and it's very important. You know, especially now that we had a COVID-19, all of us are not immune totally to the effect of this virus, and we don't know what's going to happen. So that's the very minimum that you need. Well, someone you trust. That's the thing. For most of us married people, a spouse obviously the obvious choice, but you know, we need somebody you can trust to handle these things while we're still capable of appointing those people.
So our next few slides, Dong, and we go into a little more details about these things you just mentioned. For example, this is where we talk about the will, and you said that if you just have a minute left on Earth, and the one thing you must do is will. And can you talk about how people set up wills?
Sure, there are many ways to get wills, and people have written will on a napkin and things like that. All the court looking at, if they're looking at probating a will, is what is the intention of the testator at the time of the will is written. So however they interpret that is fine, but we want to give the court as clear as possible the direction of where we're going to go. You can get on, you know, online and then have a will form. You can go in and buy a program to do your will and all that stuff, and they work great. They work great. I don't have any problem with it. And as I was talking before, in that will depends on your situation, whether or not you have children. You can appoint guardians for them. You can take care of a lot of things, especially if you have minor children. And then, you know, you have to validate the will, and you have the two witnesses. And requirement, if it's not a hastily written will, we want to make sure that there's no contesting of this will. So for what it's worth, I think it's worth it to hire an attorney or law firm to do your will, simply because of the recording of the will and then the keeping of the will. As attorney, we keep the original of the will in the safe in the office. And then we give the copy of the will with our card on the will and send it to the client. So if somebody have their important paper in the lockbox or wherever they put it, if they should pass away unexpectedly, if something happened, the heir going to pull out the will, and on that will it say who prepared it, and this will be a card of the person. They can go and look at the original to make sure everything is correct, and this is not a duplicate of something that wasn't done right. So for what it's worth, just the record keeping aspect of the will is worth it to get somebody to do that for you. And also, we would have witnesses and we would do it right, and notary and everything like that. So your will is self-certified. Just by looking at it, it doesn't have to be certified that it's a correct will. Okay, so yeah, the very least is get a will done.
Then what about financial power of attorney?
Well, is a lot of people don't want to give up power of anything. You know, we're all power. We're all control freaks. Every one of us, when it's come down to
Not
this.
me.
I take like 5 minutes to laugh.
You agree, right?
Yeah, sure. Anyway, so if you need the power attorney, you know, somebody will take care of your legal and anything else that you need to do if you're incapacitated mentally or physically, and then that will make things a lot easier for if the time comes.
And also the healthcare directive.
Right. I touched on the healthcare directive a little bit. This is very important right now with the COVID-19 and uncertainty regarding health in this country. I'm looking at the health directive, and the most important thing to me is whether or not I should be kept alive if there's no chance of me living. I mean, I don't want to be sitting in a vegetative state if there's no chance of surviving. I want to be unplugged. I think that's, you know, for some people, religious reason don't allow that, but it's my wish and I want that in there. So whether or not you want that, that's very important. Who's going to make the decision on your health? If you're, you know, sitting there and cannot do that anymore, how are you going to be careful? How your funeral going to be, whether or not you want to be cremated, whether or not you want your organs to be donated, everything's, not everything, but most of the important things are in there. And it's very simple to prepare. There's a state bar form, there's various version of it, but you can pick and choose what the items are important to you and put it in there.
So in terms of this estate planning, we kind of covered number one, if you just have 1 minute, you need to set up the will. And the number two is the financial power of attorney. That is so important that you designate someone to take care of your money matter when you are not when you are not capable of doing it. Then healthcare directive is also very important. And Don, I heard of some people, you know, a couple of people I know got infected by COVID-19, and they went to the hospital, and the hospital actually provided them some sort of form. The form sort of asking them who we talk to if you are, you know, not capable, and are you going to be on ventilator, or you like to, you know, I guess a choice, do you want to do what? And so they're saying that, so question for you is, when you go into the hospital, you signed something different at the time than what you said when you were not sick. What if these two are conflict of each other? Which one go ahead of with which one?
The rule of all these things, from will to trust to everything else, is whatever was signed last.
I see.
Closest to the present time is the will of the person signing it.
So maybe the best practice is that if you already have a healthcare directive, instead of signing the form that you got in the hospital, which they printed and with certain limitations on there, you want to take your own to go to the hospital and have them put that in file. Am I right?
Yeah, you can do that, or you can compare that with the document they give you, and if something override the other, you can decide which one it is that you want.
Okay, very, very good advice, because I had a client run into that issue. Obviously, they didn't die, so we talked about it, but it could end up be a complication. And you know, the next one we would like you to cover is this family living trust, because we're talking about 4 items on estate planning. We talked about will, we talked about appeal, power of attorney for financial matters. And then we also talked about the medical health care. Those are being the urgent matters. You do it, please do it yesterday. Don't wait for tomorrow. And but this family living trust seems to be the one that takes a lot of time to think, and it takes time to build. And we just want folks today here to understand this is part of a very important part of estate planning, family trust. And I want the Don to tell us why it is so necessary to have a family living trust. I thought it was only for rich and wealthy. So you're talking to small, teeny business owners, and we don't have that much. And is that equally important to us, Attorney Don?
The question people ask is obviously, you keep saying how evil probate is. So how do I avoid that? You know, do I die without a single penny to my name, or do I just don't do anything and just let the government figure it out yourself? Well, the answer, surprisingly enough, is you die without a single penny to your name, because everything you have is within the family living trust. What the trust does is create an entity in which you put all your entity, your money, your asset, everything in there, okay? And then you assign a trustee, somebody you can trust in the name trust. The trustee will decide what to do with that asset. So the trust has a living life of its own. It's keep growing, it's dynamic, it's changing over time, including the trustee. The trustee can change and everything like that. So normally, as the beginner, the creator of the trust, you are the first trustee, but you have a list of who will be the next trustee. So if you die, well, when you die, not if, we all gonna die. When you die, the next person gonna be the trust. You die without a penny to your name. Everything is under the trust. Therefore, you avoid probate. You avoid going through anything that you have to do to pay taxes, to go through probate and everything, and to keep it private. And the trust is going to be in existence still for generations if need be, okay? And in the trust, you can specify everything. You know, the asset live in this, well, you can call it a house, and that's what we want to do. We want to build a house, and in that house, we're going to protect our assets and then have everything else so we can take care of the next generation and continue the family legacy. It's not about just money. Of course it is about money, but it's about the peace of mind that you have control and you have somebody you can trust, have control over all the assets that we're talking about. So it's a very, very powerful tool. And I can't emphasize enough the benefit of having a trust, but a lot of us just don't believe that we need a trust because simply we don't have enough money. We don't know what the process is involved. So Ying and I is trying to give you an idea of how to start this and what the benefits of doing that.
So we actually call the trust, it's almost like you're building a house. So you're building a house to protect your hardworking result, okay? So inside of the trust, and the reason it's called a living trust, it is a trust, it is an entity that you set up while you are living. You are just like Attorney Dong said that you are the trustee, so you are the one managing the trust. So the trust gonna do whatever you want to do. So there is no problem for you to just act like yourself still. Even though you have all your property under trust, but you're still writing the check, you're still spending the money. So it is no different from you don't have a trust versus you have a trust in terms of your everyday life. So that is where we want you to have less anxiety related to having a trust. So let's talk about what's in the house, first of all. So when you build a trust, build this house, there are 6 items I listed here. Those are the items often seen in the trust. Of course, you can always add more things, but to take away anything, that's not recommended. That's a basic. So number 1, and you setting up the trust where you have this central location, central hub of documentation with all of your things in one place. So if you happen to be gone and your spouse or your kids, they know exactly which drawer to open so they can pull out that whole item. So that is a trust binder, a trust documentation that you need to have. With that physical existence, inside of it, you should have a schedule of assets, which is a list of all your worth. And then your will, we talked about it, like if you don't have a trust, you should have a will. But if you have a trust, you should have the will inside of the trust, file them in there. Then HIPAA authorization is really another word for medical care. So you need to have a medical care resolution here. And then living will, and this is specify your health care, medical treatment while you're not dead. Okay, so that is your medical care coming in. See, the 3 items we talked about earlier is all showing up in the trust. That means it is so important when you have a trust, you want to put these furnitures in there. Then of course, a POA for your financial arrangement. So that would be the element for the trust, very much like when you have a house, you have a roof. Consider that roof is your big binder. You have window. Consider window is your schedule of asset. You have floor. Consider the floor is those authorizations, both for the financial and for health. Then that kind of make up a home, right? A house for you. Then we also talk about furnish your house. Once you have this trust, you got that big binder, but you have nothing in there. And I tell you, I have seen so many people and coming to our office and gladly to announce, Ying, you know what? I heard your webinar and I already have a trust. I'm thinking ahead. I know what I'm doing. And here is my trust document. Take a look. And I took a look and there was nothing in there. Their house title didn't change. Their bank account wasn't there, nothing in there. And I said, so you have a house, but you have nothing in there. What happened to the furnitures? What happened to your jewelries and everything and your stock, your gold, your 401k, your properties? What happened to them? And they go, what do you mean, Ying? Those are my property. No, they are your trust property. You need to furnish, you need to fund them into the trust. So here, in this slide, you can see that Community CPA, we have a 5 wealth mix. We always recommend it to our client. And when you establish your schedule of asset, remember that is one piece inside of the trust. When you establish that, we like to see you have this all 5. And if you say, well, Ying, I have 1, but I don't have the other 4, then if you want to, if you really want to accomplish a balance in wealth, the mix you have, so you don't get dead in the water overnight. If someone just have a lot of money in the stock market, you know what happened back in March with COVID-19 hitting the market? It went down to the tube. And if you tell me that you have not heard of anybody losing money on the stock market, I'll tell you that those people who really lose money, they won't tell you because it's so hurtful. Who is going to tell you? They only tell people who does their taxes. Then we see big losses everywhere. All right. So mix, that wealth mix is important, and you have to have a life insurance. So your life insurance should be labeled properly to go into the trust. And that beneficiary need to go into the trust, and you need to have your real property title change to the trust, and your 401k, that need to be updated. That should be in the trust. Then you should have, if you have jewelries, gold and precious metal, things like that, that should be listed in the trust asset. And stock market investment, you should have your trust title in your bank account as well. And you know, I don't know whether you have that experience. I have quite a few of those checks who coming into Community CPA, and instead of client paying out of their regular account, they actually have their name, last name, then they have the family trust, then the address, and then the postcode, then the check. So what does that mean? That means the people who actually have a trust in place, their bank account belongs to the trust. If they die and there is nothing to go to probate because under their name is nothing, they had everything inside of the trust. So this is where we really want you to know that once you get the trust set up, and your next very big step is to fund the trust, F-U-N-D, fund. I know it's a weird name. It's almost like you give money to the trust. No, no, no. It's fund the trust just means to move all your asset into the trust. So the trust name is everywhere on the stuff you own. If you have a jewelry on your finger, you better realize that it's under the trust name. That's how it works. Okay, so now we talked about how to furnish your trust. So we have a house. Trust is the house. And we talk about what's inside of the house, the roof, the window, the floor. Then we talked about how to give furnitures to the house, right? So we talk about life insurance, real property, 401k, retirement, and the gold, precious metal, and jewelry, stock market. Those are the 5 healthy mix you should have in your life. Now, the next thing I want you to know is how to address the household issues, right? You have now you furnished your house, but what about household issues? And I will have Attorney Dong to walk through those household issues with us, because as long as you have a family, you have family fights. So those are the things that the trust supposed to come in to resolve it. So Dong, go ahead to lead us through this couple more household issues we have on hand.
Okay, before I do that, I just want to touch on the real property under the trust. What we have to do to fund the trust is to quit claim deed the property over to the trust. Now, some people may say, I can't transfer the property out of my name. It's the mortgage is going to kick on, and I'm going to have to pay transfer taxes and things like that. Fortunately, under Iowa law, they provide for you to transfer the property without any of those if the property is transferred for the purpose of funding the trust and not a bona fide purchase. So it's actually pretty easy to do that and to transfer the property into the trust. Many times when you buy a property, when you closing, you see on the warranty deed that the property is transferred from a trust to you, and that's what you want, okay? So once you have that property in your name, you want to transfer to your own trust. And so when you see a property transfer from a trust to you, that means that somebody already, whether that person is still living or not, is doing the homework on the trust and saving a lot of money and headaches and everything else, transfer that property to you. Back to this household issues, a lot of time people put their business into the trust, and then that's not a dangerous thing because the trust is under control of the trustee, which is you. But also you can address whatever issue you have with that business, how you want to transfer, who's the owner of that business, your children or your partner or whatever it is. You can address that under the trust, okay? So there wouldn't be any ambiguity of how this is distributed and how it's going to be transferred from one generation to the next, one partner to the next. And in that, you can map out what your wishes are for distribution or partnership, the percentage or whatever it is under the trust. So there wouldn't be any question regarding what your wishes are regarding that. So a lot of the internal struggle between the small businesses and things like that, a close corporation, things like that, can be addressed within the trust. So that's another tool within the trust that you can do to manage your property and manage your business. And with this trust, you can keep the business as well as the trustee within your family. A lot of us, don't trust anybody but our family. And regardless of how crazy they are, like mine, there's still blood. So you keep going down the line. So like Ying was saying, household issues within the house. This house is what we call the trust.
So especially sometimes the family-owned business, and maybe you have 3 children, but only one of them is interested in the business. So you can make arrangement in the trust that the business still goes with 3 kids, but only one is in business. So this kid will have maybe a little bit more share than the other one. So the other one still get paid from the family-owned business, but not involved with managing the business. So those are such a special arrangement the mom and dad can do, and it can put that writing in the trust so you avoid your 3 kids fighting. I will tell you something, this is true. This is a real story. And of course, without names. So the siblings is already in their 70s, okay? And the parents die, and the sibling, well, one of them in the 70s, the other 2, one is in the 50, another one is a 60. So can you imagine those adults already in their 50, 60, 70 are fighting over parents, the business left over. And one of the adults had already running the business for almost 30 years. And now they're fighting the business like it was new, because there was no directives on how to make it. The parent didn't bother with the trust, and it's a mess. So right now it's in the attorney's hand. And let me tell you, the last conversation I had with the family, one of the siblings already paid $35,000 to the attorney to resolve it. It is just unbelievably messy if you are not considering to solve your small business matters ahead of time. And then the other thing I like Don to talk about more is some small businesses, they're not really family business, they're partners. Like they're partners of like 3, 4 families. And in that case, Don, can you elaborate how trust can help that situation?
Well, you got to be really careful with the small business with the multiple owners, especially if they're not related, they're not your children or your brothers and things like that. Because you can only put in the trust, what is yours. You can't put in the trust the company that you don't own 100%. You can only put the percentage of it in. And with that smaller percentage, you don't have total control of the property, okay? The property being the business that you're in. So it's a difficult situation given to the trustee of the trust who cannot have 100% control of a certain business or a certain property that we had to deal with. So within that, you have to decide what to do with your share in case of a buy, sell, if somebody wants to get out and things like that. So that's another tool that we can put in there, even though you don't own 100% of the trust. I mean, the business that we're talking about. So within that trust, you can put in a buy-sell agreement with the other parties on your aspect, your ruling of how this is going to be done under your behalf and under your share of the business. So you can set a evaluation, for example, of how these shares, these percentage of ownership are to be calculated and to be paid off to the other party. Or if you want to buy it, how much you're going to be willing to pay it and who's going to make the determination for that price. the more details you can put into these agreements, the better you are when things, you know what hit the fan, because then you're going to save a lot in litigation because the agreement is there. And whoever want to oppose the agreement and already signed it and things like that would have a hard time changing the agreement and the terms of the agreement. So that's another tool that we can use within the trust.
So succession plan is also the tools we can use in the trust. And we also have beneficiary updates that can happen in the trust, and pet arrangement and all of the other arrangement. So we kind of mentioned about how useful a trust would be. Then I want to bring up one important point is that once the trust is set up, it is really an important matter to visit that house all the time. Sure, I don't expect you to visit it every day, but you should visit it at least once a year. When you do your income tax return with Community CPA, and you should bring your trust in to get that updated as well. So that is kind of where is important, because you know your beneficiary may change, and your family may have a dispute over certain things that you already know is coming. Then you can fix that when you review the trust. So we want to say that if you really did a trust and you are adopting a lifestyle, it is not as simple as, well, I did a contract and with my future self, I'm done. No, you actually adopted a lifestyle to really be a control freak and or be a planning person. You plan your future, right? And with that have said, and we say that other than visiting your house often, and you also want to find the right housekeeper for your trust. So in this one, and I want to say that a lot of people, a lot of attorneys' office, they set up the trust just like this gentleman come in with a trust. Nothing was funded and nothing was in the trust. So the trust is empty. The house is not occupied. In that case, we say that the due care is not there. You need to find the right person, the right company to care for your trust. So we always, in Community CPA, we work with clients that we knew for years. So if someone come in to Don and to me and wanting to set up a trust, and we knew that person already, and we probably doing their taxes for 15 years, and now they want to do trust. And with COVID-19, we have more and more people are very sensitive to the interruption of life cycle. And I mean, people are, you know, I don't have a lot of clients get affected by COVID-19 because we're in Midwest, we're better. But I have known people who from our clients, a friend who is only 31 and it just died within 9 days, come very fast. So with those, and we had more inquiries than ever about these trust tools. If you never felt urgent, we want you to feel that way today after listening to what Don and I are talking about, and really update, really think of what you have and start your first step by talking to Don, talking to me, talking to Community CPA. And we build a trust throughout a 5-year span. We always say that anybody who come in to do the trust work with our firm, you're committed to be with us for at least 5 years, not counting the past. You're probably with us for 10 years, but now you just signed up for another 5 years, because we believe that is how long we needed to really build a trust, build a house for you that would last. So it is really, don't walk into some place you don't know. Don't go into the places you never even heard of. You don't even know whether they know how to do a trust or not, but you go in there, do such an important and such a personal work with people you don't know. You want to find the firm that will last, the people that you knew and you can trust to do this work. So Don, do you have any comments related to find the right housekeeper?
Sure, we are.
Yes. Yay.
No, I don't want, I think it's kind of important. It's like the word here is trust. It's called a trust for a reason. The English word trust means that you can believe in that person and you can trust that person to do the right thing. And I think we have a good combination with our employees, our facility and everything else that can be able to handle this and give you a personal level of how this can be managed and basically makes your life and your death a little bit better.